therapist Kristen Jacobson.
What exactly does it mean to be a highly sensitive person, and how does it connect to anxiety? If you've ever been told that you're too sensitive, or maybe wondered why certain situations feel a bit more overwhelming to you than others, then you might be a highly sensitive person, also referred to as an HSP. And I can speak from personal experience, as I am an HSP and also struggle with anxiety. So it isn't just in your head, there's actual science behind it. High sensitivity is a real personality trait, and if you often find yourself feeling overstimulated or emotionally drained or anxious in certain environments, then there might be a chance that you fall into this category. But what exactly does it mean to be highly sensitive, and how does it connect with anxiety? Well, let's break it down a little bit. Being an HSP means your nervous system is just more sensitive to stimuli. So in other words, you experience the world in sort of like high definition. Everything from loud noises and bright lights to the subtle emotional shifts in people around you, those are going to impact you a lot more. And psychologists Elaine Aron and Arthur Aron first coined the term highly sensitive person in the mid-90s. And researchers estimate that about 20% of the population falls into this category. So it's not uncommon, but it's also not something that everyone experiences. HSPs process information more deeply, which means their brains spend more time reflecting on experiences. So this can be a really great thing when it comes to creativity or empathy and awareness, but it can also mean feeling overwhelmed a lot more easily, especially in busy or high stress situations. So here are some signs that you might be a highly sensitive person. One is that you feel everything deeply. So whether it's your own emotions or someone else's, you tend to absorb feelings like a sponge. Like if a friend is upset, you might actually feel it in your own body. Another way of referring to this would be if you're an empath. Number two is you get overwhelmed in noisy or chaotic environments. Bright lights, loud crowds, a hectic workday. This can really leave you mentally drained a lot faster than others. Number three is that you notice details that others might miss. So this could be a slight change in someone's tone or the way the light hits a room. You really pick up on these subtleties. Number four is that criticism hits you hard. So even constructive feedback can feel personal, and you might replay it in your head for hours or days, just kind of ruminating about the conversation. Number five is that you need alone time to recharge. So socializing, while it's really enjoyable, can also be exhausting. And so you really need quiet moments to reset. This is sort of a connection between being an HSP and being an introvert, right? HSPs tend to be a bit more introverted and really need that alone time. And then finally, you think a lot. So deep processing means that you analyze things more than the average person, and this can be life choices, interactions with other people, or even random thoughts. So if this sounds familiar, then welcome to the club. You might be an HSP, and that's not a bad thing. It can actually be your superpower because you're so attuned to other people and your environment. But that said, too much of a good thing can really start working against you. And the key to understanding how it impacts your life, especially when it comes to anxiety, is really important. So how do these two connect? While being highly sensitive isn't the same thing as having anxiety, and it's not a diagnosis in any way, the two often go hand in hand because HSPs process everything deeply, which can really lead to feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated. So if you think about it like this, your brain is constantly scanning for subtle cues and changes in your environment. And so that means you're more likely to pick up on those potential stressors, whether that's a tense conversation at work or a loud and chaotic social event. And so over time, this can build up and trigger anxious feelings. Research has shown that HSPs tend to have stronger emotional reactions to stressful events. This also means they release more cortisol, the stress hormone, when faced with challenges, and this makes them more prone to anxiety-related symptoms like overthinking or restlessness or physical tension. So some common anxiety-related experiences for HSPs include overanalyzing social situations. So you might replay conversations in your head and worry about how you came across. You can feel easily overwhelmed by change. So if there are spontaneous, unexpected plans or any sort of disruption in the plan, that can really throw you off balance quickly. You might also avoid conflict. Because you feel emotions so strongly, you might go out of your way to avoid disagreements, even when you need to speak up. And you might experience sensory overload. Crowded spaces, loud noises, or too much happening at once can trigger a stress response. I experience this all the time. So I'll be in the middle of making dinner and my kids will be loud and running around and the dog will be asking to go outside and the TV will be on, and it's just like, it's too much for me. And so I just really have to make sure I'm taking some deep breaths to sort of regulate my nervous system and taking a break if I need to, even if it's only for a few minutes. But the good news is that understanding the connection between sensitivity and anxiety means that you can take steps to manage it better. So if you're an HSP who struggles with anxiety, you're definitely not alone, and there are some ways to create a lifestyle that works a bit better for you. So we can't always avoid sensory overload or if we're in sort of a chaotic environment, but here are some strategies that can help mitigate some of the hypersensitivity that you might experience. One is to set boundaries and stick to them. So definitely learn to say no when you need to. This is something that a lot of my clients struggle with, who, especially if they're people pleasers, they overcommit, they say yes impulsively, and then they find that they're completely drained of energy. So it's okay to protect your energy. If social events or work commitments just leave you feeling completely drained, it's important to prioritize downtime. So just don't become a hermit, make sure that you are being social and putting yourself out there, especially for that anxiety piece. We don't want to avoid things that make us anxious. That's part of what helps, is that exposure, but you need to balance this with the sensitivity of your nervous system. You also want to create a calm environment. So having a quiet, cozy space, preferably at home, where you can decompress is really crucial. So this can just be a little corner, or maybe it's even just noise canceling headphones at work, but anything that really helps you reset. Number 3 is to practice mindfulness. So I know this is a common suggestion, and a lot of people will say, I did it and it didn't work. But this is a skill. You need to practice with consistency to develop this skill. Just like if you were a soccer player or if you were learning a new instrument, it takes practice and commitment. So techniques like deep breathing, meditation, slow walks in nature can help calm your nervous system and keep anxiety at bay. And if they're not working in the moment, then you might have to practice them consistently so that when you need to draw on them as a tool, they'll be more readily available and will work in the moment. You can also get comfortable with self-soothing. So find things that make your nervous system feel more safe and grounded. And that can be listening to calming music, taking a warm bath with Epsom salts, journaling, using sensory-friendly things like weighted blankets. I'm a huge fan of weighted blankets. Anything that's going to calm your body. You also want to limit exposure to overstimulation. So recognize what triggers you and plan accordingly. If crowded spaces make you anxious, then try scheduling things during quieter times, or take a break when needed, kind of disappear to the bathroom for 5 to 10 minutes just to get out of that overstimulating environment. And finally, you can seek professional support. So therapy can be super helpful, especially with someone who understands high sensitivity and how it interacts with anxiety, like myself. And they can just, a therapist or another professional can just really help explore tools that are specifically helpful to you. So the upside of being an HSP is that we are often compassionate, intuitive, and deeply creative. And You can bring this unique perspective to the world, one that's really thoughtful and emotionally rich. And learning to embrace your sensitivity rather than fighting against it can make a big difference. Especially if we were told we were too sensitive growing up, it might be something that we're feeling is a bad thing or that we're feeling insecure about, but it's not. We just need to learn how to work with that sensitivity. So instead of seeing it as a weakness, recognize it as a trait that really allows you to connect deeply and think critically and experience life in a really meaningful way. So being a highly sensitive person isn't something that needs to be fixed. It's just a different way of experiencing the world, and that can be pretty cool. And while it might make you more prone to anxiety, there are plenty of tools that can help you manage it. So if you're an HSP, give yourself some grace, and just understanding how your brain works is the first step in learning how to work with it, not against it. So I hope this information was helpful. I'd love to know about your own personal experiences being an HSP. So drop that in the comments section, or if you have a question, feel free to ask that, and I'll see y'all next week.